Dear colleagues, good morning. Ukrainian Crisis Media Center starts its work, and I invite to the microphone Speaker of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Colonel Oleksiy Chernobai. Good morning, dear participants of the press briefing on the framework of reforming and optimizing the work of the Ministry of Defense. The Committee on Reforms continues its work. As of now, they have finalized the parts of the Strategic Defense Bulletin of Ukraine. The Ministry takes into account recommendations of the intra-agency working group on the national security and defense, including the National Defense Council experts, foreign experts, and the central executive bodies. Now the Strategic Defense Bulletin is submitted to the presidential scrutiny. Passage and realization of this defense document will become a starting point for formation of strategic documents for systemic reform of Ukrainian army in line with NATO standards up to the 2020. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine is expected to present it in the NATO headquarters in June this year. Besides that, the state program for the development of the military forces of Ukraine till 2020 is worked out. The major objectives and goals set in the Strategic Defense Bulletin are reflected in this state program for the military forces development. Thus, it provides for the development of the up-to-date management and introduction of the unified management of the military forces, improvement for the defense planning, implementation of the transparent and efficient resource management, with the use of modern Euro-Atlantic approaches, strengthening of the capacity to carry out defense operations aimed at protection of the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of the country, creation of the unified logistics system, etc. Besides that, the Ministry of Defense continues its work to avoid those servicemen who carry out their military duties thoroughly. Thus, the last week, 75 servicemen were awarded with the awards of the Ministry of Defense. The status of the participant of military operations was awarded to 144,000 of servicemen and employees of the military forces of Ukraine. Also, the ministry continues to conclude contracts for the army service. Thus, from the beginning of this year, more than 28.5 thousand servicemen had concluded such contracts for army service, and out of that number, 3,000 are officers, 1.5 thousand are from the regular service, and around 5,000 these were mobilized servicemen, previously mobilized servicemen. Also, the ministry continues to pay bonuses and fees to those servicemen who carry out combat operations in the ATO area, and for this purpose the government had allocated 130 million hryvnia. Thus 20,000 27,000 of servicemen had received around 123 million hryvnia for participation in the military and combat operations. Also, more than 1,200,000,000 hryvnia were paid to the families of the killed servicemen. Around 450 million hryvnia were paid to the wounded servicemen. The population continues to actively support the Ministry of Defense, and it donated during the last 2 years more than 39 million hryvnia. Out of the 145 million hryvnia which were donated by population to the Ministry of Defense, more than a half was directed for medical care. And currently, the medical services in the anti-terrorist operation area is carried out by special military medical staff, which are specially trained for field operation, for field medical service and in tactical medicine. Those servicemen who were wounded later are treated in the hospitals where the care is provided. 2,500 of medical doctors. As of today, in the hospitals and treatment facilities of the Ministry of Defense, there are 93 wounded servicemen from the ATO zone. 40 servicemen are undergoing rehabilitation in the sanatoria and resort facilities. And in general, this year, 262 ATO participants had undergone this treatment. 19 Ukrainian servicemen are undergoing treatment abroad. 6 of them are treated in Germany, 4 in Lithuania and Austria, and 2 in the United States and Latvia, and 1 in Poland. Ukrainian servicemen continue to carry out demining of the territory and clearing the territory from explosive ordnance. During this week, the sappers had cleared 25 hectares of the locality, where they neutralized 430 units